It is our first episode of 2024, and we are kicking it off with a crazy episode. Welcome to the newest episode of League One on the Rocks. My name is Rich. You can find me on Twitter at I'm Rich, but I'm not. Joined as always by the co host extraordinaire, the man, the legend, Bryan. You can find him on Twitter at Mediocre Ace. Bryan, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, especially now that we get such a big time interview on our show.
Exactly. Well, without further ado, let's jump straight into it. So, to give an introduction of this man, we have to kind of go back just a little bit because he has been working overseas for almost the past 19 years with Ipswich Town FC. And he went all the way from managing I mean, working the boot room and going all the way up to leading the corporate, the boardroom. So this man has filled just about every single position within that club. Decided to come across the Atlantic Ocean to help USL. Was hired on initially as the senior vice president, then decided to take the role of the USL League One president. Everybody, please welcome Lee O'Neill. How are you?
What an introduction that was. Thank you very much. Happy New Year to everybody, to you guys and the listeners and everyone else in the soccer world. Thank you. Yeah, I'm very good. Very excited to be here. Thanks for having me. And looking forward to chatting all things football slash soccer related in the next 30, 40 minutes.
And when I've gone back and looked at some of your previous interviews, whether it was on another podcast or it was a written podcast, you love to tell this story, and I want to hear it too. You did not get bitten by the soccer bug overseas. That happened over here in America while your dad was playing in the major indoor soccer league. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, it's something I'm very passionate about. Yeah, I'm very much a family man. My parents were amazing in my upbringing, and I have unbelievable fun experiences of football or soccer, if we're going to refer to that and make sure I use the right terminology. But yeah, my early days, I can remember it going to Wichita Wings and watching him play in Kansas, and the Coliseum there, and there was 10,000 plus people in an arena, really getting passionate behind the game. My dad's from Glasgow. He's quite a passionate Scottish person, and he came across here and kind of enjoyed the environment of the indoor league in the mid to early 80s. And, I've got some really fond memories of that. And we still keep in contact with a lot of people that are in and around that area. And I used to come here every, summer, whenever time allowed it, outside of my role in Ipswich, to America in general. I love the country for vacations, and it's just such a big country. There's so much to see and do and explore. So, got really good fond memories of it, and that's where my bug really started for the game. And what I started to do, and obviously my dad decided to move home and back to Ipswich at the time, where he actually played for the club as well. And yeah, I went through at 13, 14 as a player, joining the associated schoolboy forms back there, and then scholarship, and then going on to the pro game side of things.
So we talked about you working virtually every single position there at Ipswich Town. You, I mean, 100% did because you were in the academy, worked all the way up to the boardroom.
Yeah, I was very fortunate. There were some great opportunities at the club, and the people at the club who were owning and operating, or people that I'd looked up to growing up, were, gave me some really good opportunities to explore different roles within the club. But what that did is gave me a really good, wide, broad set of skills, I think, to allow some of the roles that I'm doing now within working with clubs. It's nothing really much I haven't done, from ordering everything for consumer products, to working behind the bar, to cleaning boots, to working the boardroom, and then working fundamentally on the two aspects: one, the technical side of things, and building rosters and selling players and trading, and then the other side of things really is the business side of the club, making sure that the P&Ls are in order, and making sure that a club can operate from year to year.
And speaking of Ipswich Town, you must be very proud of them right now. They are second place in the championship. They just beat AFC Wimbledon in the latest round of the FA Cup. So, I mean, they're undefeated so far in the calendar year of 2024.
Yeah, a massive credit. When I came across here, we weren't in that position, and we were finding things difficult. There is a group of guys that have come in from the ownership side of things. They're owned by an American group now, and senior leadership group, and I know they've done an amazing job in the last 2 years to get the club to where it is now in the position. And that's credit to all the staff, all the players, all the supporters. It's a great club. I have a very good fond memories of it, and yeah, it'll always have a place in my heart because it's my local club. And it's great to see from over here. I get to see them, and they're doing amazing. And look, we don't know. It's a wonderful game. They could go a step further and end up back in the Premier League, and they have been there in the past. So yeah, all fingers crossed. The remaining 15, 20 games of the season, they can get there.
Yep. Well, let's shift the focus to American soccer, specifically USL League One. We have a ton of questions to get through, and we had a lot more submitted by fans. So we want to try to do as much as we can in the short time that we are with you. So I'm going to let Brian kick this off. We have a whole outline filled with questions, so we're going to dive right in.
Yeah, so we can just jump right into what your role is now with the USL, and just kind of ask you, since you've been president for about a year now, what have you noticed that is kind of the league's greatest strengths? And I'm even going to throw a hard one at you and say, what do you think is the biggest weakness of the league?
Yeah, I think I'll reference League One, obviously, because that's the league that I work in. And we obviously have a bigger ecosystem outside of that. But referencing League One, so the first part of the question is, what have I learned over the last year, or what are our strengths, if you want, for the league? I think it's an exciting league with a really, really good group of ownerships for each of those clubs that I currently work with in the 12 teams. I'm fortunate enough, we have board of governors meetings, and I sit there with Paul McDonough and Jeremy, the presidents of obviously the overall USL and the president of the championship. And we work very closely with these guys who, own the football clubs, and they come up with lots of good ideas about how they can impact the game and their community. And I think that's in a really good place. I think over the last year, particularly, it's been really encouraging to see that more people have been coming to games. The games themselves have been more entertaining. If you look at the amount of goals that have been scored, it's trending in the right direction. So those things have been amazing over the last 12 months. We have a lot of work to do to get to where we want to get to. But we have to remember, really, 4 to 5 years into that birth of, if you want, a new league. So it's very young, and we are learning each year, and that's what we get good when we get together. The board of governors, we met in December in Tampa, and we review everything and look at how we can make things better, both from a league's perspective and from a club perspective. So the last year has been really focusing on that, but it's been pleasing the way that some of the numbers have been trending for that. Some of the challenges that we have, if you want, or difficulties, or the things that we need to work on, is obviously we need to expand the league. We need to get more teams, and this country is so big, it has a challenge with some of the travel aspects. We've got teams in Spokane, right out on the west coast, and we've got teams obviously on the east coast. So it's an incredible challenge. You listen to the stories that people say, in Europe, when they're traveling in playing in the competitive games competition and traveling in Europe back and forth. And some of our guys are traveling, twice, if not four times the amount of some of these guys in. It's a bit of a challenge for us, but, one that we need to grow with as we continue to develop the league.
All right. And when you were on Walking 90 almost a year ago, uh, you mentioned that you were adamant about trying to make it to every single club for at least one match day. Were you able to do that? And if so, what
I
was your
wasn't.
favorite memory from doing
Yeah,
that?
there's a couple I'm still at. So Richmond is due a trip, so that they're out there, and there's a couple that I haven't made it to just yet. But most of them I have, yes. And you know what, I was, blown away with the ones that I had been to. I think from two or three different aspects, the atmosphere on the game day, and things that the clubs are doing, whether that be in the car park before the game itself, or even after the game. I think they're really trying hard to build a fan base, create an atmosphere that people want to come and enjoy the game. I'll reference Madison particularly. When I went to a game during the week, they had lots going on. It wasn't just about the game. They had things going on in that game that, during around the game that would just make it really entertaining for not just the soccer fan, but the families. And, you didn't matter what age you were, male, female, there was lots to see and do and lots to be part of. So, for me, it was really good to get out to the clubs, and the one or two that I still need to will be on my first list for 24. But there's been some really encouraging things. As well as that, there's also things when I've seen it and gone there, we can do better. But that's working with the clubs. They do a phenomenal job. Sometimes with very limited resources, to make things very very good and watch the games.
So we've kind of, or you've kind of bragged a little bit about how the clubs have done. So is there really something in your first year of being president that you want to brag about that you've done?
It's not about me. It's not about the league. It's about them. It's about the clubs. Look, we can sit here and say that at the end of the day, the league needs teams to be able to operate and continue the trajectory that we're on about. I think what's really good is it's been pleasing that my style of leadership, if you want, within the league format is to work collaboratively and work with the teams. And what's been pleasing for me is that all of those owners have been very, very good and open to, some of my thoughts about how I see things going forwards, as well as, reciprocating that and me trying to understand that there is 12 different markets, 12 different communities, and there's 12 different types of fans in those communities. It's hard for me to understand what it's like for a fan in Omaha unless I've been there and understand what it's like growing up in that area, or Richmond, or Chattanooga, or Tormenta, or something like that. So for me, I'm just pleased that we continually to work hard. Like I said before, there's so much to do. That the challenging part is, where do we focus on first and next?
And there's certainly a lot of work to be done leading up to the 2024 season. What are you most excited about?
I'm really excited about this season just to continue building on it. I think obviously we've changed a few things with the league's format in a balanced schedule. So I'm hoping that obviously brings that extra element of competition alongside the cup competition. So for me, that's something that I'm really excited about for 24. I'm excited for Spokane coming in as one of our new teams, and they've obviously been doing a lot of work behind the scenes over the last few months, and I'm excited to see how they progress off the back of Lexington and One Knox last year. So from my point of view, that's an exciting time. And I generally think there's some really, really good players in League One, and their journey through their teams and where they go next after that is an important thing for our ecosystem as well. So from everything, I think that's what's exciting me about the competition framework, some of the things that are planned with stadiums and training grounds. All of that for 2024 and 25, it becomes a really exciting time.
And you brought up the Leagues Cup, so we'll jump into some of those questions because there's quite a few. Um, so this is a question from a fan, Rico over at the Linners and Woozers podcast. Would like to ask, where did the idea for the League One Cup come from?
So probably take it back a step. The idea really came around, we wanted to be able to offer, I guess, a fairer way of assessing the season. Different to the European calendar where you have a balanced schedule, and then you have you either go up or you go down, promotion and relegation side of things. And then there is a playoff for teams to go up and down. I know the playoffs are really important to the American soccer culture and in sporting culture, I think, in general. So we didn't want to lose that. But the idea around having a balanced schedule was the first place we started. And then alongside that was, how can we offer or encourage more games of consequence, more games that matter? And if you look at the cup format that are formulated around the world in various different sports as well as soccer, it allows teams to probably, instead of looking at the macro whole season, look at a period of time where they can maybe focus on different things. And if your season's not going well in the table, it might be that you do well in the cup, or vice versa. If your cup competition doesn't go very well, you've got the season to play for. So it's giving teams and fans more things to, I guess, watch and be proud of and try and compete for as the season goes on. it can be a long season if you're one of those teams at the bottom of the league and you haven't won many games and your season comes to an end quite early. Whereas the cup competition can offer you something different, and you might still be in that for a long period of time. So the idea around it came in conjunction working with some of the initiatives for the USL in general, and in consultation with the ownership groups on what we could do to offer more games of consequence.
And I
I
know
think
that
the
there's
other
a
thing I would just
yeah,
sorry,
go ahead.
Rich. The other thing I was just going to point out is obviously, like I pointed out, on travel, and travel is a big issue or concern for us in the league. So trying to find ways where we can reduce the travel for teams and players so that we can offer more games and less travel was also another reason.
And I know a lot of fans are itching to know, are we going to be calling it the in-season cup the rest of the year? Is there any progress on the design of the cup? Are you going to be able to drink out of the cup?
I can't talk about that yet. Drinking out of the cup's a good idea. I like that one. We could definitely take that on board. The naming of the cup, and then obviously we're doing a little bit of more work around the I guess the branding of it and the naming of it. So that will come out very soon. And when we've cemented everything from the league office, we'll work with a way of marketing and making sure people get everything and all the information. So the naming of it becomes important, and obviously the partners that we choose to go with us on that is also important. But drinking out of it would be fun.
Yes, it will be.
Um, this is another fan question. I'm going to try to get as many of these in as I can. But from RVA as Red, would like to know what can and will USL One do to make the tournament more enticing to bring in maybe some championship clubs?
Yeah, and I think I've mentioned this in previous statements before around, look, it's not as it's rolled out in 24, that's it for 25, 26, and years to go by. I think the unique time is we wanted to start it this year, but knowing that we need to adapt it and probably add things into it, in consultation with the championship, what that might look like for teams and how that might work with a cup competition and a balanced schedule for them. So there's a lot of work still to be done in that area, but we would love the to be able to branch out and going in within our own ecosystem. We have League Two, which is some great teams operating in League Two at the moment, and obviously we've got the Championship. So we will be exploring all of those options and making sure that we can give the cup the best possible chance to offer different games for everybody, as we expand over a number of years. That just might take a bit more time than we necessarily would have liked, but that's part of the process.
Yep. And another exciting feature to the 2024 season is the addition to the broadcast schedule, including the CBS broadcasts. So, do we know how many USL League One matches are going to be broadcast on CBS?
We're currently working through that now. The amount I mean, listen, first of all, it's great. We've now got a partner, obviously, from the magnitude side of CBS and what they can do and the reach that has across the US and the world, if you want, on the game. So I think what it offers the USL is a chance for more people to see what's going on in the games formats, and really importantly for them to help tell our story and tell the club stories about what's going on in these communities. We've got a bit of work, as you know, with some of these stadiums that we're either having constructed or playing in temporary facilities to make sure that they're up to standard and that they're of a standard that obviously CBS work with in general going forward. So we work closely with the championship, and for us, it's a great first step into that world. Elevating it from where we currently are to what the plan would be for 24, 25, and years to come, that we can then work with a partner like that would help tell our story, our USL story and our club stories to people on a wider audience.
Yeah. And so do you guys have any say in the process for determining which matches are going to be broadcast, or how does that kind of look like?
Yeah, it comes back to standards. There's certain things within cameras and stadiums and pitches and things like that. So we have to work through with teams and give teams the best possible chance to obviously try and adhere to those standards to allow us to be able to select certain games. Obviously, some of the key games of consequence, shall we say, towards the end of the season will definitely be part of our priority for League One. But moving forward, it's trying to make sure that we can showcase and tell and show people what's going on with some really good stuff at clubs. So, we're obviously working through that with clubs, and that's why it's a bit premature to go out and say which clubs and games are going ahead and stuff like that. But The exciting part is that, they wanted to partner with us. We're in a really unique position, and the media team and the commercial team that have been working on this for a number of months, we're in a really good position to grow from it, from where we are currently at the moment.
And we have a fan question from Tim over at Ranting Blue Penguin. Going from micro to macro, how do you think this is going to impact the exposure of USL clubs both locally and on a national basis?
Yeah, really good question. I think I just kind of touched on it there. It's about telling the story. What's going on in Tormenta in Georgia. Unless you've been there, or you're from there, or you don't really know what Darren and his team are doing with the infrastructure and the new stadium, and the real estate they're going around there, and the impact they have within their community, from the academy side of things, from the men's and the women's. So telling the whole story about soccer, and I think that and elements to the broadcast and standards and things like that, they're all the macro is obviously being able to tell that story across the board for people who probably don't know as much about the USL, and we can promote that. And on the micro side of things, I think it's reinforcing some of the really good practices that clubs have been based on for the first 4 or 5 years. Is they're embedding their communities, and they're at the heart of their communities, and at the forefront of the fans, and making sure that they can offer a product on and off the pitch that they're proud of, and want to support going forward.
And something that is super important to fans that do watch the broadcasts, is that any game that isn't picked up by CBS, is there going to be a broadcast partner for games that are not on that network?
Yeah, I think, look, not too much is looking to change. We're making some announcements very soon on that. But the idea being that the games will be accessible for all, and you're making sure that people can see them as they have done in the past. So, I think that's one of our key strengths, is making sure that more people can get eyes on the games, and more people can come to the games. We're very much hoping, again, we've made progress in the attendance side of things, and we want to continue to make attendances. So, as well as the broadcast is, yes, you can watch it on TV and online, and my plea, I guess, to some people, is making sure that people don't stop going out and supporting the teams in the stadiums, and going to games, because that is the livelihood for a lot of the organizations to continue the growth that we're on.
And speaking of that growth, let's talk about the future of League One. What sort of goals would you like to have achieved in the next 5 to 10 years? And this is a question that came from Reddit, uh, username Content Pen 4928.
Yeah, so I guess short, medium, and long term goals. We're growing. We need to grow, and we want to grow, and it's important for us. We have lots of contact within the league office of, whether it be states, towns, cities, that would be very interested in coming into the League One market. I think for us, if we look at the map and look at geographically where some of our teams are, and you can see, you don't have to be a scientist to work out where we need to be in, and some of the markets that we're currently not is some of our target areas. So one of our obviously objectives is to continue growing. Very excited. 25, we'll be announcing very soon. There's some great teams coming in for 25, and the plan is again for 26. So naturally, over the next 12, 24 months, we have probably our largest set of growth coming in over the number of years, and it's been steady over the last 2 or 3. We've had probably two, one, two, and then obviously this year we've had one new team coming in. I think 25 will see probably the biggest growth and the quickest in the amount of teams that come in. And then that again in 26. So I think naturally you'll see more teams coming in. And for us, we could enter them earlier, but I think it's really important that when these new teams are being set up, that they have the right infrastructure on and off the pitch to be able to launch properly. So we work with those teams to make sure that the runway is accessible for everybody. And so one of our goals, and not a small one, is to continue to grow and expand the league. And yeah, everyone asks what the magic number is, but we kind of want to work with certain markets, and when we feel we've got to that particular point, we'll obviously let people know. But at the moment, we are working with a number of key markets that we think would be really beneficial for League One as we grow out the league.
And another question here from Reddit. So the Hairy Man 123, crazy name, but we'll take it. Just in your opinion from being here, do you think soccer is becoming a larger sport in the US, including leagues such as the USL Championship, USL 1 and USL 2?
Yeah, 100%. Um, a- and it has surprised me how quickly, as well. I think, the last 4 or 5 years in particular, it's got a lot more traction. And I live in here in Tampa, and in the where the league offices are, and a lot of the new estates that I'm seeing in and around the area, and it's a growth. The city's growing very fast. In the smaller ones, when you go into some of the downtown areas, you see some of the other facilities, whether it be baseball, American football, and other sports. And the newer ones, you'll see that they're building soccer fields, and there's more and more soccer fields being built. And I think that's an encouraging sight to see, that you see facilities being built, because that encourages. And I drive home, in the evening. I come on a Monday and a Wednesday, and I see rec soccer going on outside, with even all the adults and the kids just coming along and then just joining in and playing football. So I think that's on a small scale, but on a larger scale, there is a lot more going on in the space, and I think that's a credit to. There's more teams, there's more pathways for young players, to be proud of and to look at, possibly in this country rather than going abroad. The coaching's getting better. There's more qualifications that people can go on. There's more experiences that people are getting in this country. So it becomes a really exciting time. And then off the back of that, you look at the World Cup, the World Club Cup, and everything. Every cup competition or every tournament is coming to the US. Last summer you had the Premier League here. This summer you've got unbelievable amount of teams that want to come here for pre-season. So America becomes a real positive place from a soccer perspective, that they want to see and want to be part of. And it's growing. It's growing in a really good rate. So yeah, it makes it an exciting place to be.
Well, we only have a couple questions left. So, with that growth that we were just talking about, it leads into the topic of territorial rights. And you've spoken on it in the past, saying that there are details that are yet to be examined. And with more eyes on the sport, with more clubs being created, with more ownership groups becoming active throughout the U.S., how far away are we from loosening the restrictions of territorial rights?
There's so many things that go in. Obviously people have paid money to be part of certain areas, and they work within that. So there's that area, then there's the federation, there's the league itself, and then there's other leagues. And so there's competition across the US, and with that growth, I guess, from the game and the things I just mentioned, it becomes a lot of opportunities for people. And I think it's making sure that everyone can grow, and the game in this country can grow, and offer, I guess, rivalries, because that becomes important for the game as it continues to grow. I think all of those things will constantly be reviewed, possibly challenged at times, and find ways to try and make sure that more teams can become available. But at the same time, trying to offer protection to those people that have invested or continue to invest in their area. So it's obviously a difficult topic. But the country is so big, and again, on the grander scheme of things, there was territorial rights in where I came from in Ipswich. You had 60 miles one way, and then for me, I was on the coast, 60 miles the other way. I couldn't quite go into the sea. So, there's an area or a patch that kind of was yours, and that's where you kind of worked from, and you kind of recruited from, and developed players and stuff like that. But it also developed the rivalry side of things. So, that it's all there, and it will naturally occur as we continue to grow the sport in this country.
And so I would not hear the end of it if I did not ask this question from one of my friends from here in Omaha, Zach. He wants to know what your opinion on pyro at the games are, and will the league ever review pyro rules for supporter sections?
I yeah, it's controlling it. I think it's a difficult one. It's health and safety first of all. Look at how we can make sure that no one, anyone who comes to the game, whether you're of a younger age or an older age, needs to feel safe in the environment they're in. So the health and safety aspects of it become important. Look, have I seen some unbelievable pyros and things gone on in Europe, and it becomes amazing? Yes, it's incredible. You look at some of the things that go on in other countries. But it's making sure that that everyone's safe within that, and finding the balance to do it. It's a constant hot topic with the operations team in the office, and trying to work with supporter groups to make sure that they can do something for their team, and make it more entertaining. But the balance of getting that with the safety of it is still a thing we have to work through.
Well, you have a very busy night ahead of you. Do you have any last words that you want to say to all the fans out there before you head out for the night?
All I would say is a thank you. Off the back of 23, my first season at the USL, and it's been amazing. There's a lot of work still to do, but I think the hard work that you guys put in to continually spread I guess the news and the interviews that you do around the league with the teams and the supporters, and that doesn't go unnoticed, particularly at our head office and generally the supporters. Without everyone like you, we don't exist. We don't. The teams don't exist. So I think if people can keep getting behind, it was amazing the Open Cup side of things. You can see that there's a passion in this country for soccer. Just get people to continue coming out and watching it, supporting it, and doing all the good things you can do. And look, the league's here to support that and help when we can. And we look forward to 24 and many years to come.
All right, Lee. Thank you so much for joining the show. Can't wait to talk to you again soon.
Okay, guys, thanks very much. Take care.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Ooh. All right, man. That was a fast and furious interview right there.
Yeah, I feel like we really put him on the spot for a lot of those questions.
Yep.
And then Zach, I had to get it in for you, man. So there you go. He likes it, but they're actively looking at health and safety, which in third division, let's be honest, that's a huge deal. So
Yeah. So we were only given 30 minutes with him, and we wanted to push the envelope and get as many questions in as we could. I know that we went, with some of the softer questions at the very beginning, but I mean, we still wanted to hit some of those harder questions as we went along. So thank you
yep.
everybody for submitting those questions. Brian and I are still going to chat for a little bit
Yeah.
about some of the rest of the questions. There's a whole ton of stuff that's happening in League One right now, so why
Mhm.
not talk about it?
Yeah, I mean, and we got some time, and we want to make sure we get a full episode in for you guys. And I mean, he's a busy man. Lee is a very busy man, so
Yeah.
obviously, any time that we're able to get with him is appreciated more than I think the front office kind of realizes. So
When we sent over the questions that we were going to be asking tonight, it was really interesting to see the mix of questions that we had, because it really tells us what is on the forefront of everybody's mind across the League One community. And so there are some topics in here that people are genuinely concerned about. And I'm sorry we didn't get to ask every single one of these questions, but we tried our best to get as many as we could.
yeah, we definitely did. And I mean, there's obviously some things that were asked of us to ask that we could not make happen. I mean, it just is one of those things where we know what kind of questions are going to get answered and stuff like that. So we weren't going to ask something and put him in a bad position to be on the show as well. So,
Yeah. Well,
but I do see in the live chat, Winners and Woozers is here, and they're asking to see the sticker for Tyler Crane Kicks Lex. It is right here. I am going to be going upstairs to put it in an envelope after we get done and get it sent out. So, yeah, that was just a fun little game I decided to play because I found myself and wanted to make something out of it. So, Tyler, I've got it here for you. It's going to be sent out probably not tomorrow because we're getting a ton of snow here in Nebraska, but I will get it out as soon as I can.
yeah, before we hit record tonight, Brian, you said you were getting 7 inches tonight? 7 inches of
I
snow tonight for all you
yeah,
dirty
I
minders
mean,
out there.
I mean, who knows with how they do forecasts? They're pretty hit or miss, and I've been pretty vocal about that before. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I know wind chills are going to be super crazy, so anybody in Nebraska definitely keep bundled up for sure.
All right, Zach's throwing a question out here. Based on the team announcements so far, who is your dark horse?
Uh,
Dark horse. I have a front runner that's
I have
pretty
a
obvious, but
yeah, I have
as
a
far as a
favorite.
dark horse, yeah,
Favorite is Lexington.
yeah.
By far, they've had an amazing offseason. Um, as far as dark horse goes, Madison's made some good ones. I feel like Madison's always going to be one of those dark horse teams. They always
Yeah.
seem to make enough signings to be really good. And then what happens on the pitch, who knows? But other than that, man, I mean, everybody's made good signings, and we're still a few months out from the season starting, so there's still time. But
My pick is gonna be Chattanooga.
mm,
We saw with the way that their coach finished the 2023 season
hmm
with the squad they had, and then you look at some of the signings that they've made in the offseason, I think Chattanooga is gonna be a team that, a lot of people are gonna be taken surprised by.
yeah,
Obviously, the people who, follow this league very closely are seeing those rosters develop and can see the potential that Chattanooga has,
hmm
but for fans that may not follow as closely, when they go to the stadium, they're gonna see a different Chattanooga walk into their stadium.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, I think that was the whole point. I mean, the teams that turned over the most was, obviously Tormenta turned over damn near their entire roster. Um, and then Chattanooga turned over a ton, but they've been doing that as well. So, I mean, there's definitely a lot of really good players coming into the league. That to me is the most exciting part.
And
Um,
how about the darkest of dark horses, Fuego, because we don't even know what their roster looks like.
yeah, I wonder. Sometimes I just wonder if that's a calculated move by Fuego.
Yeah.
They're just like, nah, you don't need to know. Well, you'll find out when we put out our starting 11. At least
It's
that's
like
what I hope
playing
it is.
it's like playing poker and keeping your hand for the next round. Like, no, you have to show your cards.
Right. Yeah. Um, I will say there's some exciting signings. I know today his name escapes me, but there was a player coming from um, DCFC. I don't remember off the top of my head. That's missing, but in any case, I mean, we've got players dropping down from championship. We've got players coming in from overseas, stuff like that. So I mean, this is one of those things too that you need in a league like this, especially with obviously the announcement of um, another league coming in to join the third division. Granted, not till 25, but um, you really got to do something to stand out. And I think so far League One is doing the right things to make themselves stand out.
Yeah. We didn't even ask him about that. Shoot, we were even planning on it too. Dang it. That's a missed
Yeah,
opportunity.
yeah. Next time, next time.
Yeah, next time. Um, what was oh yeah, so with all the roster announcements, there's also going to be the coming announcements of the preseason schedules for a lot of these clubs, and that's
hmm
going to generate a ton of excitement too. Are you going to go to any preseason games if you can?
Well, yeah. Obviously, if I can, I would love
Yeah,
to go to all of them. The problem with Omaha recent, like as of late or since their inception, is these are usually all closed door or
yeah,
or in a place where um, you'd have to climb a tree to watch it.
yeah.
So, um, yeah, sure, I would love to go. It just depends where it's going to be hosted, and with Omaha's track record of weather in February, really doubt any games are going to be happening inside Omaha.
I remember a story from Ben over at Who Gives a Hoot. He was telling me a story about one of Union Omaha's preseason matches, and I think it was taking place over at University of Nebraska Omaha inside that facility, and
hmm
he just happened to be riding his bike by the stadium at that exact moment.
Right. And you know what, too? I mean, if it happens in Omaha, yeah, I'll go sit in that parking garage because anybody who hasn't been to or seen Caniglia here in Omaha, they have a parking garage that sits right across the street from not even the street, right on top of essentially the stadium. So
Yeah,
if you wanted to watch something going on there and it was closed door, you could just be a UNO student and go and park in the parking lot and hang out before class. So
yeah.
get your enrollment in now, get it done before. So that way you don't
Just
get
for that
kicked
one
off the
preseason
property
game.
just for the one preseason game. What's $6,000 in tuition for to watch a 45-minute scrimmage?
There you go. There's got to be some sort of a a 100% return on dropouts after like 60 days or something like that. So
Oh
you're
yeah,
fine.
yeah, be all right.
Did we have any other questions over in the YouTube? I was
No, nope, not yet.
cool.
So if anybody does have any questions that you want answered, you can go ahead and throw them in there. Uh, Continue to talk about it.
Yeah, so it was also one of the other questions that somebody threw in here. Let me see if I can track it down. I mean, we had so many.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, with the okay, so let's talk about the territorial rights because I I like the fact that there's so much competition going on around the country, especially within the US
Hmm.
soccer pyramid. I want to see more of those close-knit rivalries. So, take for instance you, since you're a Liverpool fan, you have
Hmm.
Everton. You can throw a stone from Anfield and hit Goodison Park.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So to have stadiums that close together, have that natural rivalry there,
Hmm.
even have Liverpool, Manchester United, they're super close together. It's a very easy drive for them for fans to make. To have those in America would be amazing.
Hmm. Yeah. Obviously, we have quite a quite a few um, places that are farther away. Um, and I'm not really sure. I haven't been super well versed in the territorial rights, but I can only imagine like in my own head, I would see somebody like Omaha playing like a South Sioux City or something like that. You know, like a 2 hour drive is that's I mean that's still a ways, but that's more in line with what you get in Europe. I mean, maybe that's one of the longer trips, obviously, but um, and ideally for me, USL could put a team in Lincoln or any other team or and something within a 35-minute drive. So that would be terrific, and that would be like my bucket list item thing. But yeah, I mean, until they re go through territorial rights, and I'm sure that's a whole can of worms that I'm totally not ready for that conversation. But
Yeah, that's for people with a lot more initials after their name. Certainly not me.
I don't have that sort of time or brain power right now. So
But ideally, once we were to have a unified US soccer pyramid,
mhm,
obviously that's not going to be happening anytime soon. But ideally, if we did have one, we would have those rivalries and there would be so much more fan engagement.
um,
Lee has even mentioned in previous interviews that he has started to notice the tribalism in America that he
mhm,
had seen over in England.
yeah,
And so to know that there are fierce fans backing their clubs here in America,
mhm,
foster that. Let it happen. Find those rivalries, find those communities that haven't been accessed yet. Get in there, get a club going, and feed off those rivalries. That'd be
mhm,
great.
yeah, it would be. Um, and ideally, it's something you'll see. And I think with the popularity growing as much as it has, I think we are still really in the infancy of super fandom for American soccer teams.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's always been there, and it's always been a smaller sex. But I think the general public's opinion on soccer has completely shifted, even from when I was in school, and I'm only going to be 33 next month. So even from when I was in school, it's done a complete 180 from how it was viewed at the time. So um, this is really only the beginning, and I think we can really build on this going forward. And I think it will grow, uh, and eventually it will be. I don't want to say NFL level. I don't think it'll get quite that big. I don't think it'll ever replace the NFL or anything like that. But it can get to a Major League Baseball status or even close to an NBA status. It's something to look out for sure. Something that I think is growing and will continue to.
There was a question that was submitted by uh, Linners and Woozers, our friends over there. Linners and Woozers Lower Leagues. You can find them on Twitter at LW Lower Leagues. I'm going to throw this at you instead because I think this is a good question.
Sure.
Is the USL considering a top division above USL Championship? Now, you have to consider the fees that it would take to get to be Division 1, all those administration fees. you would have to talk about all of the monetary expenses that would come along with that just to stay afloat as a Division 1 status. I mean, there's a ton of money that you would have to spend.
Mhm.
Do you think it's gonna happen?
Uh, no, but I don't think it's because USL isn't going to be able to get teams to be able to financially float it. I think it's because US Soccer Federation will not allow two Division 1 sanctioned leagues. They just won't do it. Um, and I know we've been haters on MLS at points. But you at the same time, the MLS just has more reach right now for a casual fan. Like if I go down the street and I say, "Hey, can you name me a soccer team?" Most people are going to name an MLS team, right? Um, that's changing, I think, in our markets. Obviously, League One markets and Championship markets. That's going to be a little less hit or miss with who you're going to find, but um, yeah, until US Soccer can realize that you can have two first divisions and one is just smaller, um, I don't see it happening.
Yeah. And we have some comments coming in over in the YouTube. So Soup Loops is jumping in saying that he would love it if the Savannah Clovers were USL. I agree. That's just an hour away from Tormenta, so why not foster that rivalry? That's
Mhm.
what's oh yeah, our quote unquote rivals are 4 hours away. Yeah. So um
Yeah, ours are 6.
yeah. And then Ewan, so he actually submitted a couple questions into our outline. I don't think we were able to hit on any of his questions, but he's asking, why do expansion teams fail to be transparent? They generate hype and then disappear. I'd be okay with them staying if they failed, or I'd be okay with them saying they failed.
Mhm.
Um,
I
if
mean,
a top yeah, so go ahead with that.
yeah, and the one under it, if a top division is not on the table, the USL fails. Just because that is still in that conversation. I don't necessarily know that it fails. I just think it will hit a growth and then plateau. And when you plateau as a business, then that the product starts to go down. I don't necessarily think it fails, but you will see less interest. So maybe that is a fail of sorts. But and as far as expansion teams failing to be transparent, I really wish I had an answer for that.
Yeah,
I don't know why either. I completely agree. If they just came out and said, "Hey, look, we were looking to join League One, we just couldn't garner the interest from investors, or we couldn't get a stadium deal done." Ooh, now we know that you're not in the league. But I also think they probably sit there and don't announce that they failed because they are still holding out hope, or still talking to investors, or still trying to get their stuff sorted out. At least
yeah,
that's my hope.
yeah. They're holding out hope for that white horse to arrive and kick their primary funding back into gear and
Hmm.
make it happen. But yeah, well, I mean, we've seen that with USL clubs in the past where they announce their stuff. They even have merchandise that fans can purchase, and then they just go belly up. I hope that is not what we are seeing with Santa Barbara right now. I genuinely do hope that they are able to gather up whatever
Mm.
resources, funds they need to be able to play. Um, we were hoping they were going to be playing in 24. Now we're gonna hold out hope that they're going to play in 25. We'll
Hmm.
keep checking in with that club and get quotes and all that stuff. Hopefully, have representatives from that club on the show.
Hmm.
That'd be cool to have an interview with them. But that's another thing. If they're not going to be transparent, they may not be as adamant
Hmm.
to join or eager to join the show.
Yeah, and I mean it when you, when you come to public mind when you break media silence after a year. Um, but I mean they also broke radio silence over a year. So are you a pessimist or an optimist? I mean, they broke
Yeah.
radio silence after a year. Does that mean they found funding and they're just starting to bring their stuff back in slowly, or are they just announcing something to try to help with the investment? So
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm a pessimist, so I'm going to say they're probably just trying to Well, you haven't been active on Twitter in a year. Okay, we're gonna throw this out. Good cause. Here you go. So
But to counter the pessimism, there's a lot of optimism happening over in Brooklyn.
yeah.
We're waiting for the stadium announcement to come, but when that happens, it sounds like it's gonna be one hell of a stadium they're gonna be playing in.
Hmm. Yeah, and I mean, you look at everything Brooklyn's done. I think Brooklyn's really looked at what Lexington and Knoxville did coming into the league. It's really ran with it as well. I mean, and very recognizable brands, very active with their stuff, trying to be as transparent as possible. And I mean, they flat out said they're looking for their stadium option to get sorted. So as far as we know, that's getting worked on. Um, Definitely going to be interesting having Brooklyn in the league. That's a huge market. So
Yeah.
um, I'd expect a pretty huge boom in popularity of USL if that deal eventually gets done.
If you have the funds to start a 3rd division soccer team in Brooklyn, I think those owners are doing just fine, and I don't think
Yeah.
those fans have anything to worry about. They're gonna start playing in 25, and they're gonna come out the gates. They're gonna be strong. That's gonna be a fun club. I can't wait to buy some of their merch too, because
Yeah, they're
I
so
love the
cool.
fact that when they stormed onto the scene, they said, "We're not gonna go with the traditional design. We're gonna go with our own brand, and we're gonna do it our own way." And I
Hmm.
love that. It looks so
Yeah,
good.
you have to. I mean, in this league to stand out, you got to just do what you feel is right. Um, and if you want to come out the gate and be super, I don't want flamboyant's not the word I want, but if you want to just be super in your face about
Yeah.
what your brand is, okay. And I mean, that's got to be such like a New York thing, right? It's just coming in and we're New York, we're taking over your league. It's like, okay, we'll see. Like
Yeah.
that'll be interesting though. I cannot wait for the banter that's going to come out of that one.
Mhm. And then Texoma, I mean, that's gonna be a fun one.
Texoma is
We're talking about
cool.
all these clubs that aren't even lined up to play this season, and we have Spokane, who's actually gonna be kicking a ball here in, like, a month or 2.
Hmm.
So, Spokane is another really exciting one,
Oh my
to
gosh.
think about with all the possibilities that are going their way. That's gonna be a fun one to watch.
Well, you talk about a team that came out and bucked tradition. I mean, came out in its Spokane velocity.
Yeah.
And they came out with a super simple uniform, but a super clean uniform. It just, I mean, damn, talk about bursting onto the scene.
Yeah. Yep. Let me jump back in here, see if there's anything in here
You and
that we can
saying,
jump.
of course, the league is in a good spot, but MLS Next Pro is just too aggressive. Yeah, I mean they've got much more funding. It's
Yeah.
easy to be super aggressive and to go after markets when you know um, you have a $400 million investment into that game. It's a $5 million investment roughly to get into League One, as opposed to a 300 and some to be affiliated with an MLS team. So money talks. Let's just let's just say that.
So let me throw this your way. With all the money that these MLS clubs have,
Hmm.
we know that they like to generate and keep their money.
Hmm.
Why are they spending money on a lower division league that literally does not matter in its competitive balance? There's nothing to play for. There's no monetary reward that comes along with it. Do you think that there are MLS owners out there who are second guessing having MLS Next Pro?
Um, hmm.
Because for me, it seems like it's you're just throwing money away. Because how
Yeah,
many of those guys from MLS Next Pro are actually going up into MLS ranks and having a sustainable career?
not very many.
There you go. They're
Um,
bringing players in from the outside and
mhm.
not generating the talent or developing the talent enough to get them up into the MLS status. They may be developing them and selling them off to other leagues,
Yeah.
but even that's not going to be enough of an income to even offset operating the league.
Hmm. Well, I think a part of it. I mean, we remember what Orlando City B did in League One, and it was squat. They were
Yeah,
bad, really
yeah,
bad. Wooden spoon winners, bad.
yeah.
Um, and not competitive wooden spoon winners like Fuego was, but like I'm talking, you saw them on the schedule and you were like, got 3 points this weekend.
3 points.
I mean, I think that was probably part of it. It was a bad look for them to have their two teams in a league that wasn't their own league, and they were not competitive in that league. So if they built their own league, their only teams that they're losing to are other MLS teams. So I think also, I mean that was kind of a smart ass answer to that question, but
Oh yeah,
partially true. I think the biggest actual reason is just more control over transfers in and out of their own system.
yeah,
And it probably has to do with the academies that they run and stuff like that. It's easier to have everything under one umbrella as opposed to having your academies be MLS academies, your first team being MLS academies, and your second team being USL teams. Like it doesn't make too much sense. Now there's obviously positives that they're missing out on. That your teams don't get to play in front of 6,000 fans at City Stadium
lost
every
revenue.
single weekend. Yeah. I cannot imagine they are making any money opening up these parks for these teams. Um, I mean,
Merch sales. No one's buying Toronto FC 2 merchandise. They want
no,
Toronto FC gear.
yeah, it's probably the same price too. So,
Yeah, it probably is.
so I'm not buying two Steam. It's the same price, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's so there's so many different reasons why they ended up leaving. And I think we all know the biggest one is they don't want to give a competitor any ammunition to use against them, essentially.
Yep. And Soup Loops is jumping in saying that's a good thought. And think of how much money they spend on extra coaches slash players in MLS Next Pro. And then they seem to not get any revenue from tickets with such low attendance. So
Hmm.
yeah, hit the
Well,
nail on the head right there.
and you got to think too. Not only do you not want to buy merchandise from Toronto FC2 or SKC2 or any of these other teams, if you're going to go to Children's Mercy Park to watch a match, I'm not going to go on a random Tuesday night to go see SKC2. I'm just going to
Yeah.
go on Saturday and watch Sporting Kansas City.
Yeah. You can attract those fans like yourself to drive those multiple hours to come down to their stadium for a weekend match. You're not going to be able to do that for a weekday match for a lower division team.
Mhm.
You're just not going to be able to.
Yeah. 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 And I will say, too, just because we were talking about Sporting Kansas City, that after the news came out today, that it's a little tough to be not even a little tough, it's very tough to be a Sporting Kansas City fan right now.
Uh-oh.
Just
I'm I'm behind on the news. What happened?
Oh, I'm just gonna leave it at it. It makes you rethink your fandom, and then
Oh,
we'll kind of part from there.
gotcha. Oof, I am behind on the times. I have a lot to read tonight, apparently.
Oh, I'll send it to you as soon as we get off.
All right.
But anyway, back to actual topics we're here for, which is League One stuff. I don't know if there's anything else that we have that we haven't really hit. I mean, obviously promotion relegation.
Yeah.
Talking about the status of Pro Rel. We're not going to get an answer on that. I'm sure it's in
Yeah.
the works. I'm sure it's being talked about whether or not it's going to work out or not. Um, I will say I don't think it's 100% necessary. You don't have to have it to have a successful league, um, but
Ooh,
it would be easier.
we did get a good question, and I think this is going to be a good conversation as well. This one comes from Reddit username TIWEAV01. The question was, do you think the expansion fee is too high? Do you think it's pricing out potential markets? Now, this raises a really interesting question because if you think about it, the upfront cost to start a championship club is, I think, 20 million.
I think 20 to 25, yeah, somewhere in there.
Yeah, so thereabouts. And then if you look at League One, it's what we're sitting at 5 now.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so your upfront cost is there's a difference there.
Mhm. Let's call it
But when you
$15 million difference, yeah.
yeah, when you look at the player minimum for League One versus Championship, there's not a drastic difference between the two
Mm-mm.
clubs. John Morrissey wrote an article, and he found that I think in 24, I'd have to pull up the article. I think the difference in the league minimum is only 20. I think it's 26%.
Oh, that's not big. That's not huge.
Yeah. So, what do you think that League One can do to entice clubs into League One versus just gathering up that lump sum and going straight to championship?
Buy-in is a big thing. I mean, if you're I don't know about you guys, but $15 million is quite a bit of money, um, especially when you're talking about operating a sports team. As far as do I think it's too high? Um, I think good friend of the pod, Chip, talked about this on Walk-In 90s interview with Lee. But I mean, it's just a way to say, yes, I am serious. Yes, I'm going to continue to invest to try to get my $5 billion investment back at some point. So I don't necessarily think it's too high. Is it pricing out markets? Probably. I mean, there's definitely some markets that are not going to be able to come up with that kind of money and fund a stadium and do all the other extra stuff that comes along with joining League One. But at the same time, I think Lee said it on their interview that you don't want teams to come in and then fold. That I think is a worse look than only having 12 teams is a better look than having 18 teams and 6 of them fold.
With that wave of promotion relegation getting bigger and bigger, and it hasn't even started to hit yet, if you're an investor and you're in a quality market and you're able to gather the funds to separate yourself from League One and get into championship, it it may very well be worth the risk because once promotion relegation is installed, I don't think they're gonna allow teams to buy their way into championship at that point. And so if you're able to get the funds and get yourself into championship, there's quite a few teams in the bottom half, even the bottom third of championship that are going to relegate themselves through competition. So you're going to have a few years to sustain yourself through those competitive seasons and possibly put yourself in a better chance to succeed. And you won't have to play through League One, the whatever playoff system they have to get up into championship. By that
Mhm.
time, you'll have settled yourself into the championship and you'll be a regular member of that that league. So I mean
Mhm.
it's might be worth a risk.
Yeah. The only possible issue with that would be what happens if the first year of promotion relegation, you bought into championship and you relegate to League One.
Yep.
I could have bought in for 5 billion. I bought in for 20 million. Um,
Yep.
Obviously, that is the big thing that I don't think the league has sorted out yet. Um, what do you do for these championship sides that bought in for 20 million that dropped to League One? I mean, they're essentially out $15 million. What are you going to do to make up that difference for those teams? Or are those teams left to fend for themselves? And we know with how thin the margin is for some of these teams, is dropping down literally a life or death ordeal for these clubs.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the biggest thing. I think the league is hesitant to do that because I think there's still teams in championship that are operating in the red. I think there's teams in League One that are operating in the red. So any little, not even little setback, any setback is just going to be so detrimental to them that they're not going to be able to recover.
I don't think there's any um, misguided notion out here that every single one of these League One clubs or even championship clubs are making a ton of money every single year. These are shoestring budgets at best.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, there's got to be a good number of them that are sitting in the red. And so there's a lot of risk here.
Yeah.
So let's examine that then. With promotion relegation, how far away do you think we are?
I think in order to do that, you're really going to need to figure out how you're going to compensate teams, or if you're going to compensate teams dropping down, as I said, and how you're going to lift up teams going from League One to Championship. Now, and like the way it works in Europe, you come up a league, you get a stipend of a certain amount that you can spend on players, anything else that you need to spend it on, to make your time in that league function. They need to figure out how to do that. They need to figure out how the profit sharing from um, this new CBS deal is going to work, if that is even an option with them. Um, I mean, I think it's just all that little stuff has the legal jargon has to go through, and I think we all know how long a legal system takes to do anything. Um,
Hmm.
it's probably being actively worked on and figured out. I would say you're probably the earliest you'll see any promotion relegation actual work towards implementing it. It was not going to be till probably 26, 27.
Do you think the design of the in-season tournament with the lone outlier moving on solely based on goals scored is a component of that persuasion to display to championship to kind of get them excited and to start going back to the table to talk about pro rel?
Yeah, I think I mean, nobody does something for no reason, right? They're not only is the in-season tournament something that they wanted to do for all the reasons Lee said earlier. I think there's also ulterior motive. Sounds like so like not okay stuff. Like you're trying to get one over on somebody. That's I don't have a better word for it, but I don't mean it as they're trying to get one over on championship with this in-season tournament. But it definitely is something that they're trying to push as, hey, watch us. This could be really fun, and we'll kind of see where it goes. Um, but also with this being a League One Central One now, I can't imagine that this came to the table with Championship with a whole lot of time to figure out how they would implement their own. And if I remember right, I think Championship seasons are already well balanced as it is. So adding an in-season tournament on top of that, you're adding more games, and then you have to go and figure out how is each team going to be able to open their stadiums for these, like, let's say 3-4 more matches or whatever it ended up being. I don't remember off the top of my head, but you're gonna have to open your stadium for this X amount of matches again. And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier with a lot of these shoestring budgets. Can some of these teams afford to open their stadium for 3 or 4 more matches a year? Does the income of a random in-season tournament justify the spending to host the in-season tournament? So
Hmm.
it's a lot of logistical stuff that I can't even pretend like I have any idea what they have to go through. Um, the numbers on that, numbers are not my friend, so I wouldn't even try to attempt the math on that.
Would you want to see League Two in that tournament?
Oh yeah, if
There
we're
we
gonna
go.
do it, we do everybody. Everybody gets
Yeah,
in.
yeah.
But then again, another can of worms. League Two is aren't they semi-professional? So
Yep.
you have semi-pro teams coming in? Are you structuring it like the Open Cup? Are you playing League Two teams first? There's so much extra stuff that goes into it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I would love to see just a USL Cup competition,
Yeah.
because I'd
I
love
just
to
want to give
see like a USL two team go in and beat a championship team.
so for everybody that's watching live, I want to give a quick shout out to Bryan for wearing this jersey.
Oh
And there's
yeah.
a story that goes behind this. That is a gorgeous jersey. I love it. So we have a friend, Chris Kaufman, who has the Twitter account USL Argentina,
Hmm.
and he's been helpful to us with some interviews in the past. And he is now a spokesperson at Diaza, the jersey company, the sportswear company. And yeah, we reached out to him and said that we really like the design. That's the Hispanic heritage jersey that
Is
Brian's wearing,
yes.
and so we really like the jersey. And um, yeah, he made it happen, and we were able to get some so he got one and I got one, and then we had a couple others that we were able to hand out. But yeah, it's a beautiful jersey. I
It
love the
is.
vibrant colors on it.
Yeah, as soon as I saw this one, I was like, I gotta have it. I'm gonna get it a bit somehow. I'm going. But yeah, this one is Cultures FC, Cultures United FC, excuse me. And then on the back where you'd usually see names on the top, it's also says Cultures FC across that. So um, I wore it to the gym the other day and actually got a few like looks and asks about it. So it's pretty cool. I mean, this is a very eye-catching kit top, so
Nice.
very cool.
There you go, man.
Very excited to receive it, and I'll tell you what too, like it fits about as perfect as a kit can
Does
fit
it?
for me
That's
personally.
awesome.
Oh man,
Yeah.
tighter arms if you're into that, and then it isn't too long either. Like I went a size up, I think, from what I usually do, and it ended up fitting perfect. So
Nice. Well, shout out to Chris,
yeah.
um, and thank you to Diaza for the jerseys and all that kind of stuff. We
Hmm.
we love them. We love them. Yeah. Um, we are sitting at 73 minutes. Do you want to keep going, or are you
I
ready
think
to sign off?
yeah, I think I better get up there and
Yeah.
help my wife out with the children because
Screen time almost over.
well, yeah, my wife got home about an hour ago, so
Oh, okay.
sure they're doing other things up there. So, but
That's cool.
it's about dinner time, and I think I got to check and make sure I'm going to work tomorrow or not. So,
All right, everybody. Well, thank you for tuning in to another episode of League One on the Rocks. I want to send out a special thank you to all of our fans who responded on social media, whether it was in Twitter, whether it was on Reddit, whether you sent us direct messages. Thank you for all the questions and the comments that you submitted for this interview. I know that we were only given 30 minutes, so we tried to squeeze in as much as we could, but we appreciate all of the help that we provide or that we were given by you. So thank you very much.
we really appreciate it, guys, and definitely keep them coming as we do more of these interview episodes. Um, if we can, we will do a lot less of us asking the questions and a lot more of you guys giving us the questions to ask. Um,
Yeah.
if we can be that middleman between the fans and players, coaches, front office members, league office members, obviously we would love to do that. Um, so yeah, just please continue to do that. And if you haven't already like subscribed on YouTube, that go ahead and head over there and do that. Um, check us out on all of your podcasting listening things. I do Spotify personally, but whatever you do, we're on it. So, but yeah, just really just continue to listen as long as you're
Yeah.
enjoying it. Continue to listen because we don't do it for monetization. We don't do it for anything like that. We do it just because we like doing it and we like talking to you guys. So,
Yep.
um, so just please keep it up. And again, as Rich said, thank you so much for all the questions. It really made this interview process pretty painless to put together.
No kidding, it really was.
I think the vast majority of questions were listener questions. So,
Pretty sure they were, yeah. Um, and we have another interview lined up for next week. We won't announce the guest here and now just yet, but we do have another interview ready to go for next week. So
mhm.
tune in for another episode of League One on the Rocks. We'll get that interview going, and we'll have ourselves a good time.